This is Jasper.
And this is Randy. Okay, so let's jump into Tarantino's Bastards.
The 2009 Inglourious Basterds. In Nazi-occupied France during World War II, a plan to assassinate Nazi leaders by a group of Jewish U.S. soldiers coincides with a theater owner's vengeful plans for the same. Okay.
Yeah.
This is directed, of course, by Quentin Tarantino.
Okay.
Hashtag Quentin Tarantino.
Okay.
Written by Quentin Tarantino. It stars Brad Pitt as Lieutenant Aldo Raine, Melanie Laurent, Christopher Waltz, Eli Roth, of course, Michael Fassbender, Diane Kruger, Daniel Bruhl, Till Swagger, and Jackie Ido. And BJ Novak. That's another good one. BJ Novak.
Had you ever seen this before?
This will be the third time watching this movie.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one of me and my brother's favorite movies we have watched together.
I, too, had seen this before. I may have seen this in the theater when it was released. What are your general thoughts on this thing?
I watched this, so it's 2009. This was 21.
But Jasper, this is rated R.
I know.
Okay.
I was still okay.
Okay.
No, we watched this. I believe we didn't watch this in theaters. We watched it on DVD when it came out. This was probably, to think about it, this is probably the first Tarantino movie I watched. I was almost, even being 21, I was almost told not to watch this movie, how bloody it was, and which was weird because I was 21 at the time.
That is weird. Yes.
Yeah, so...
Who told you not to watch this movie because it's bloody?
My mother.
Jesus, you are such a mother's boy.
Well, I didn't listen to her, so there you go.
You rebel.
But,
sure, your mother was so disappointed in you, I bet.
She's disappointed in me every day. What are you talking about?
Jesus.
She doesn't love me. No, we watched this one, and I think we laughed more times than we were like, holy crap. I mean, the movie is kind of almost from start to finish a bloodbath.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tarantino loves his bloodbath.
He does.
But there's so many things we got from this movie. The Bear Jew, the shootout at the theater, the pub shootout. It was a man's film.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep going back to that. I don't know why. It was high action, and like I said, Brad Pitt. I think Brad Pitt was the pinnacle of this movie because he was just hilarious. It's not a role you really see like Brad Pitt in. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I love this movie. I think this is a great movie. It's not necessarily perfect, but man, it does so many things right. I kind of don't like a lot of the aspects that you pointed out that you really liked. And it's not that I don't like them, but I feel like this is a very over-the-top movie. There's a lot of performances. Like Brad Pitt, I enjoy Brad Pitt's performance. It's obviously a comedy performance, but it's a little much. Like, it's kind of cheesy how over-the-top it is.
I can see that.
That said, though, if you look at Christoph Waltz, his performance is just as over-the-top, but I love it. Like, I love Christoph Waltz in this movie. The goofier he is, the better, because you do get that juxtaposition between goofy, that's a bingo moments, and the Jew hunter, or whatever they call him, serious, scary moments. I really like that. Christoph Waltz is awesome in this. Eli Roth, I don't know what it is about his face is so hard to look at, but I think he's actually okay in this. The lady that plays Shoshana, I think she's really good in this, but I don't know. It's such a strange mix of, I mean, I guess that's an ongoing theme with Tarantino. He really likes clashing tones and manipulating the audience. The opening scene of this is a perfect example of that, where it kind of bounces, like the whole scene is very tense, but he'll inject these like really goofy things in there. Like when Christoph Waltz, like it's pretty tense, but Christoph Waltz at one point pulls out this ridiculously large pipe. It's kind of a comedy moment, but that signals the actual like real dark turn the conversation takes. So it's just stuff like that is really interesting. I forget how goofy and over the top he'll take this movie at times. Just some of the music cues. I mean, it's perfectly Tarantino, but when you bounce out of certain scenes, because I mean, this movie, okay, so there are comedy moments, but it doesn't bug me in the way that the other Inglourious Basterds bugged me. because it's not like just stupid, wacky comedy. The comedy serves a purpose, and I think a lot of it is there just to, some of it's there just to because it's Tarantino. It's like, well, that'd be cool to have that little. Every time we see what's his name, the Schultz or whatever his name is, the one German guy that's on their side. Every time we see him, and he gets like he's got the little guitar tone and just very out of place. That stuff is kind of it's goofy and as equally over the top as some of the comedy in Inglourious Basterds, but it's cool, or it sets up like a conflicting tone that really makes the more serious or darker or tense stuff stand out more. So I don't know. I feel like the comedy's used better here.
Like you said, it's not cheesy as the other movie was. Mm-hmm. It's more used to kind of get you to like kind of drop your guard, and then then the dark moments hit.
It looks so good too. This movie looks great, and Tarantino's still doing the chapter thing, doing the chapters at this point. Like he's done that for several movies now. I think it works that way. I think he's good at setting up these smaller scenarios that still fit together to make a whole. I mean, I guess he's really just breaking the scenes, like distinctly identifying, here's a sequence or a scene or whatever, or a subplot. It's very confined. We're going to do it. This is the setup of Shoshana. Introduce her character in a scene that she's not even in till the very end. Stuff like that, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. We're going to introduce the bastards. Mm-hmm. But I like that stuff. I kind of feel like, with the exception of the whole scene in the bar, which I think is great. I really like that scene. It's very tense. I just want to smack the crap out of, what's his name? Michael Fassbender in it, and Schultz, because they make that situation go bad. They are not playing it cool at all. However, stepping outside of the story, I really like that scene. But for the most part, the bastard stuff is kind of my least favorite stuff. I really like the whole Shoshana storyline. I think that stuff is awesome. It's weird that it's amazing he didn't figure out how to rope movies into Django Unchained or Hateful Eight, but I guess if you go before movies were a big thing, you can't talk about movies. But it's amazing how movie and cinema focused this movie is. Tarantino makes a World War II movie, and it's still all about movies.
I was going to ask you too. What did you think of Fassbender's acting in this one? Because I really liked him in this one, just because how he kind of always like looks really off.
I like Fassbender. I feel like he's not great. I don't necessarily think it's the acting. I think it's a creative decision. It's like a lot of characters. I mean, when we're introduced to him with an old British general played by Mike Myers. Like there's a weird conscious decision to make most of these characters intentionally extremely goofy. And it's so odd to me. Some of them I don't mind, like Christoph Waltz, Brad Pitt, like I could deal with to a point. Like it's a little cheesy, and Michael Fassbender's character even still is fine, but he's one of the more really over the top in a way that kind of bugs me. I don't think it's great, but relative to, I don't know, like I think the movie overall is a great piece of cinema. So when I say somebody in this is not great, I'm not saying they're like Razzie level bad, but there's some characters I wish were kind of reeled in a little bit. He's one of them, but whatever.
I can see what you mean.
It's mainly his British accent seems so ridiculous to me. That's really it. Yeah. Most of the bar scene, I think he's fine, but
I always like Waltz too, because he, like you say, he's like funny, but he can play an extremely dark guy. Like
it's the turn too. Like it's just instant switch. Mm-hmm. I think part of what's interesting about his performance, I'm trying to nail down what I really like about it, because he'll just chew the scenery, but he seems natural. Like he comes in and it's like and maybe that's the character, but like he just seems extremely relaxed, even in the tense scenes. He just seems natural. Like he's just, I'm just here, just doing this thing. Like, I don't know. He's got an interesting air about him.
All in all, I mean, it's a really long movie.
It is long.
Was it 2 hours, 33 minutes or something?
Does it feel long to you? Because it does not feel long to me. This last rewatch, I was actually surprised. I kind of breezed through it. And I know it's a long movie, but...
Yeah. It seemed... I'd almost say like midway through, it seemed to drag for a second, and then it was like, oh, it's over already,
And for me, the scenes that... It's some of the bastard stuff, and most of that moves real fast. We honestly probably don't spend that much time with them, but it's some of that stuff, especially their introduction and when they do the big bear Jew introduction thing like that. That part kind of drags for me a little bit, but for the most part, everything else, like there's, it's got that Tarantino tension where most of the time it's just people sitting around eating, but they're in a scenario that's extremely tense. There's so many scenes of people sitting at a table talking where it's just like, you're kind of on the edge of your seat watching these people just kind of sit back and talk. It's kind of amazing, but whatever, that's Tarantino's strength, right? That's what he does.
Right.
So plot wise, how do you feel about the plot?
I do like, I forgot her name now, but how they kind of...
Shoshana?
Yeah, Shoshana's... I like how they kind of interjected that story on top of, this Misfits group story,
Mm-hmm.
He blended it very well, that it wasn't like it didn't go off on a totally different tangent. I just like how the movie rolls, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of flows. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, it's interesting because they're really two different movies.
Yeah.
That obviously build to the same climax. Even at that moment, they both build to the same thing. They're still not really connected. One group at no point knows that the other group is even exists. And that's kind of fascinating. So how do you feel about Django's next episode, I think? So we'll touch on this very soon, but Tarantino, for the most part, can't make a straight period piece unless he's making a period piece set in the 70s. So how do you feel about, it's mostly music, but the out of period elements of this movie? Again, it's mostly music, but it's also style, stuff like that.
It's kind of hard to put. I'm trying to find the words.
Okay, well, keep thinking. For the most part, I think it works. It's weird in a couple parts, but instead of really taking me out of the story, it's just like, it takes me out and it's just like, remember, this is a Tarantino movie. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. I'm back in it. There's really only one that really throws me, because for some reason, having, the 70s music cues and stuff, that's fine. That kind of works for me. But then when we go into the 80s music stuff, like when she's getting dressed before the big, like, her revenge plot is about to get kicked off, and she's putting the makeup on, or the lipstick on, and it's got like a very 80s sounding song playing, and the way it's shot feels like an 80s music video to me a little bit. And that's not really a Tarantino thing to do, but I mean, I think it's a cool sequence, but that feels the most out of place, because that's almost like, if that's not just like a music cue, that's like lifting a scene out of a totally different time period and dropping it in here. And, it's very stylized. It's got, she's looking out the window and it's got the big swastika signs out there. And it's just, it's so weird. That's the one that takes me, I think, out of it most. I appreciate it, but that's the most jarring section to me.
Sometimes where they would stop and then they do a title card or whatever, you usually be like, oh, now I'm lost, But then Tarantino kind of makes sure, you're used to that kind of thing, I would say.
Obviously, this is all fiction anyway. But even in fictionalized stories set in World War II, they don't usually drastically alter actual world history.
Right.
This movie that does that. It drastically alters world history, because they essentially end World War II, blow away not only all of the Nazi high command, but Hitler himself, very graphically. And it's one of those things where I remember the first time watching it, I did see it in the theater, because the reaction everyone in the theater had, it was the same reaction I had, where especially, you know, the guys are shooting at the end, there's just blah, 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 machine gunning all the Nazis in the theater, and then you get the close-up of, like, Hitler's face, where they machine gun his face. There's a beat where everybody's like, oh my God, that's gross. And then they're like, wait, what? And then everybody's like, yeah! Like, I don't know. It's just a small little roller coaster ride if you don't know it's coming. You're like, wait, did they just kill Hitler? Okay. Just a little bit of shock, and then everybody's on board. How do you feel about that? I think it's very interesting. I thought it was kind of fun, so.
Yeah, like you said, it's kind of just a roller coaster effect. You're like, what? Okay, hold on. The theater and all that stuff, man, that stuff gets, like, just absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
At one point, you're like, the hell is even going on? You know?
I like her plot. I like that the movie, like a lot of Tarantino loves some revenge stories. And this is full of revenge stories. But, like, it's Shoshana's revenge story. But more than that, it's like a revenge story, you know, for everybody that the Nazis killed. It's an anti-Nazi revenge story. It's just a revenge story of the world, for the world against Hitler. I don't know.
Right.
It's kind of amazing, and maybe it's in bad taste, but it's also kind of cathartic. I enjoyed it.
When I first watched the movie, I thought this movie was all over the place. But now when you're watching it as a film, I should say, not as like just a movie, it's, you know, it's pretty crazy.
What do you think of the character, the German character, the actor guy?
Oh, Mr. Superstar?
Yeah, who hits on Shoshana, just kind of annoys her.
Oh, I just think he's kind of a dickhead.
Well, no, he's definitely a jerk, but I think he's kind of an interesting character because he's treated. Yeah, he's a jerk, and it becomes extremely evident the more he's around. But he is treated like a normal character, whereas we don't get any other Nazis that are handled that way. Even Christoph Waltz. Christoph Waltz is pretty much the villain. That, you know, beyond the obvious villains, like the historical figure villains, like Christoph Waltz is the villain, and this guy is not necessarily a villain, but he's handled more like just a normal character, and I find it kind of interesting. To where I don't know, I don't like him, but it doesn't treat him like a villain. Like, it kind of gives him a little bit more depth in a way. I don't know. I was kind of fascinated by that. That said, I mean, I do kind of hate his character.
Like, he's a smaller cog in the bigger machine. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. He's kind of inconsequential, except he's a kind of a plot device. He provides a connection between Shoshana, who now happens to own a theater, and getting all the Nazis into that theater. But he's a weird character to include so predominantly, but it was interesting that he's in there. Also, random Samuel L. Jackson voiceover in like one scene.
Yeah, which is always kind of out of the blue.
I think Tarantino likes working with Samuel, and I don't blame him. Like, Samuel Jackson's super cool. But this is one of those things where I think Tarantino's like, I want you to be in this movie, and Samuel L. Jackson read it and is like, there's no role for me. And he's like, well, I don't know, but I want you in this movie. And so it's literally just like, here's some voiceover just to get him in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's all I really have to say. I hate the chapter title of Attack of the Giant Face or whatever it is. I hate that chapter title name, but whatever. I get it. I do like her. It seems unnecessary, but I do like her plot of filming. She's got to film that little scene to play as they kick off their Nazi roast. Seems like an unnecessary risk, but, you know, whatever. Makes for cool cinematic sequence.
Right.
Oh, yeah, those Nazis totally got roasted.
I want you off this podcast, and I want you off now. Them roasted.
I guess you're just gonna have to edit me out away.
No way. Oh my God. Don't ever do that again.
Do a.
All right, taking off the headset. See you later, Randy.
Where we gotta make a cinematic universe with Nazis. Star ratings, sir. Star ratings. Are you ready? Get pepped. Get pepped up.
You're gonna go with 5 out of 5.
I hate you. You were wrong on last time though. 5 stars.
Well, I cheated this time. I saw your Twitter.
I know. God, I tried to delete them off because it auto posts. I try to delete them off before you see.
But most of the times I do not look at your Twitter. I think it's now a game for me to try to guess your star rating. But this time, I cheated.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go 5 stars because I know I had complaints, but that's just because, like, I can't just praise it. It wouldn't be interesting if we just sat here and praised the movie the whole time. There are little things that bug me a little bit, and it's mostly the performances and stuff. And then most of the other stuff I mentioned are just don't really bug me, but they're interesting, like some of the music cues that are out of place. But that said, like, I actually really enjoyed this viewing more than I expected. And I always liked Inglourious Basterds, but you know, this season rewatching all of the Tarantino movies, and we're getting up towards the end now. This one sits higher in my rankings than I would have expected, man. This is super enjoyable because I feel like it has all the Tarantino cool. It's got really good tension, and I think it's got tension with stakes that are more, maybe not higher, but seem a little higher than some of his other movies. And and it looks so good. Like, it looks so good. And like all of his movies look good. But I think it comes down to setting. Like Pulp Fiction looks amazing, but it's still most of it's in the city. Or Reservoir Dogs looks ugly, but that's just because the setting is ugly, and you know it's kind of low budget. But this one looks great. Also, knowing that Tarantino does like no digital anything makes it even more impressive because it's not necessarily even like incredible vistas that they kind of touched up or enhanced in CG. Or with CG, like they went and got those shots because Tarantino's a nut like that. So yeah, I don't know. Awesome movie. 5 stars. What do you think?
I gave it 5 stars. Again, this is a movie I always watch with my brothers. And just, like I said, it's just so weird and just so intense that I really can't give it any lower rating. You know what I mean? But it's so well crafted, too.
Definitely. I feel bad for really kind of riding the original for its weird tone and being set in World War II. Because this movie is exactly the same, where when I think of this movie, it's a fun movie. But it's also a World War II movie in which the villain is known as the Jew hunter. Like, it shouldn't be fun. But it is. Yeah. But it is, and it's okay for it to be fun.
You almost like the Jew hunter, too, just because how crazy his character is.
Yeah, like, he seems like he could be likable if he weren't a Jew hunter. So,
right? Like,
the Jew hunter. Yeah, maybe it's just the way it approaches it.